Welcome to 2016 PAWS Building Coordinator Training. My name is Lauren Hebert. I'm with ETS and I will be conducting the training today. Our agenda here is relatively straightforward. We are going to cover what specifically is different this year. So again, those of you that have been doing this, generally what you want to get out of the session is at least what do you now need to know that's not the same as last year. So I try to hit that right up front. We'll just review the testing schedule, and then really the bulk of the presentation is organized as before testing, what you guys need to do, during testing, what you guys need to do, and then after testing. And then we are going to cover test security, as always, because we think that's a very important topic. What's new in 2016? Well, believe it or not, it just was going to sound anticlimactic if I'd put this up here. Really nothing. There's really nothing terribly different or substantially changed from last year's admin to this year's admin. We do want to remind you, and this is not new from last year, but believe it or not, we still get a lot of questions, and that is WYALT is not with us anymore, not with ETS. So it is a different vendor altogether, AIR. They already did their training last week. So if you did not have someone attend that and you have alt testing going on, I think there's a big oops that might be or should be going on in your brain right now. So if you are working through the PAWS admin and you're also perhaps someone that is coordinating WYALT, unfortunately you can't lump the two together as far as any questions or specifics because they're completely separate now. Even when we handled it, by the way, that was still the case. It was a very separate process. But we did make some improvements in your building coordinator manual. So in your handy dandy folder, you obviously see the printed copy of the PowerPoint for you to take notes, and that's of course what it's there for. But you have very hot off the press, two very important supporting manuals that will be your Bible during this administration. Building Coordinator Manual. We love to refer to it as the BCM because we love acronyms because everyone in the testing business does. And then the other is your Directions for Administration, aka DFA, exactly. So we added some new appendices in the BCM that we think are going to be awesome and help you out. The observation checklist, materials tracking form, exemption request, and irregularity report. I'm going to cover the bottom three. I do not cover in my slides the observation checklist. So as you're looking that over, if you do have any questions about it, feel free to ask. And that would actually be a question answered by the WDE because they're the ones that actually conduct the observations. And that's not anything ETS has to do with. But now you have it in there, and should you have any questions, we can get that dialogue going. We're going to cover all these other three, so hold off, but again, they're just new and improved in your BCM this year. Getting to the schedule. So January 22nd was Friday. So it's very intentional that I'm now here today. So it was very important that all of you or designees or perhaps someone superior, or perhaps your district office, as long as someone was in our TOMS system. TOMS is the test operation management system. I might have had that wrong, but it's good enough. In which that we open the window right after Thanksgiving, keep it open through December and most of January for you to go in and look at the pre-ID information. So we get the information from the state, aka the good old 684 file, and just it goes right into the TOMS database as is. You all might have, though, a lot of changes and or things that had been different since that pull in October, which is when they get it, to now. So you got to get in there, and that's what you do, and you hopefully already did that. So because that now window is closed, what we now do is we push a button, and downstream now everything is going to be printed and ready to ship to you for February 29th. And I keep thinking that's a typo, but yes, it's a leap year, and yes, that's a Monday. So that is when you will get your materials in the schools. We then test, as I know you all don't like this date, but it is what it is. March 7th to March 25th is our testing window. That is relatively static with what it was last year. And then your last day to ship materials back to us at ETS is March 30th. And there is no exception to that date whatsoever. If there's one thing that you're going to leave here today with, you're going to say, oh, the lady from ETS said we can't go one day. Not even. No. March 30th. Okay? No ifs, ands, or buts. So a lot of then what we'll cover here and talk about is related to how you need to plan accordingly to work with these dates, seeing that they're so inflexible. One of the first things you do is work through the supplemental orders. So when you receive your materials and you realize that, oops, I forgot to enter a special form that was going to be needed because this person had an accommodation new this year that wasn't in the system last year, so that isn't now in my order, I need to place that order. I do that using the supplemental order, either phone or email. Handy dandy group of about 6 dedicated Wyoming call center support representatives, and they'd love to hear from you, so don't be shy. And they can start taking those orders for you up starting February 8th, concluding March 14th. Question?
So let's say our school hadn't gone in and done the TOM stuff. Is this where any new students added from October to now would need to be added through this?
Good question. So yes, but the important thing to remember, 10% overage is included. So if it was just one kid that didn't make the cut, your face is making me think it might be 20, but you know, you'll have overage automatically that comes with your standard shipment. So you might want to wait until you get everything and then see what can be handled through overage versus what you're still going to need to place as supplemental. Yeah. Any other questions? Did I go too fast on that slide with the supplemental order? It's in your...
What's the time frame for the turnaround on this?
Usually next day. They know, and they're very sensitive to the testing window. Notice that it was even before testing. I mean, we keep that window open for you through March 14th.
We don't get materials until the 29th.
Right. So they'll next day stuff, and especially a very common occurrence would be you had some sort of an event happen that compromised a test booklet, and you don't have the matching form to administer, but you need to match that form, so you want to call and get, I need form 2 of grade 3 reading. Great, they'll ship that and it'll be there next day. Another common use of them, aside from just adding to your standard order, would be the materials to ship back, and somehow perhaps the boxes have been compromised from when you received them, and we really like you to use our super awesome thick boxes. So you would want to place a call, but maybe you're realizing the timing, oh my gosh, I got to get this stuff shipped out. That too, they'll get those boxes to you next day air. Great. So moving back to the before testing. So number one thing, okay, I've already said that. So this is the second thing that I need you to remember and take away, is you all here in this room as building coordinators have a very important responsibility. You must conduct test administrator training. Yes, 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 that is on you. So who is a test administrator? Anyone that touches those materials, anybody that is involved with being in the room, proctoring, what's the other word you guys use? Monitor, like if you have a monitor in the room. They've now become a test administrator. So they need to go through training, okay? Very important. Also, remember, so everybody that was in the TOM system is going to get a label, a pre-ID label. You need to make sure that those labels are correct. We'll talk about that. You need to make sure that you plan your schedule, your testing schedule, to include time to actually get the labels on the test materials. Okay? That has to be done. Sometimes if you're in a big district or a big school, that's considerably number of days added to someone's already daily responsibilities. Plan accordingly for that. You also need to expect to have several students that did not have labels, or perhaps the labels were wrong. So therefore, the demographic information needs to be completed. That too takes time. Plan for it. You need to make sure that you inventory all the materials, and you need to absolutely review the DFA with those test administrators. In fact, your test administrator training can be simply going through the DFA. So it can be relatively as easy. We don't want to make extra work for you, but I think, Jessica, are you still putting a suggested outline up on the website for test administrator training? So they're helping you guys out. They did this last year. So there could be already like an outline PowerPoint that you can use, but you will still want to use the DFA in that training. Emily?
It is already there
Oh, look at that.
on the website.
Very good. So important, and it's already up on the website. Use it accordingly. In the DFA, we really get into the very nitty-gritty. I mean, obviously, if you guys have been doing this before, you know. I mean, it's telling your test administrator, stop here, break here, say this, don't say this. But that's the kind of information they need, and for them to have at their fingertips. So give them the confidence and comfort level that they need to have to ensure the success for your students. What do you get? So you will receive one shipping notice. One shipping notice is going to cover all the other materials that will be in all boxes. So if you get 3 cartons of stuff, in one of them is going to have the shipping notice that's going to be covering all of that stuff. You need to make sure you see that and have it and review it. Then, even more importantly though, and what we care more about, is then inventorying, you get it. Checking your inventory based on the box content sheet. So the box content sheet is going to include specifically your materials based on what we had in the TOM system. So that is going to be where you're going to start, my friend, with what now you're going to be short of or not short of. So if you attack that immediately, you then also will have ample time as you then need to place your supplemental order and not be too worried about them coming in time. Okay? So again, very straightforward, and same box content sheet as last year. Also, as part of your test administrator training, you need to review the test administrator agreement, the security agreement. So this is a sample. You all have this in your building coordinator manual, and I'm going to, sorry, Jerry, but Emily, can I borrow your BCM?
Yes.
Because I'm going to refer to it a lot. Thank you very much. I'll get back in camera now. Sorry, Jerry. Okay, so in your BCM, this agreement is in there, and you're going to want to make sure you review it. Again, our definition of who signs this agreement is anybody that handles your test materials. Okay? Even they might not then be the proctor, but they're going to be the ones doing all the coordination in the office with the test booklets. They're a test administrator from that point forward. So this agreement, by the way, is only good for 12 months. So if they signed an agreement last year, do they need to sign another one this year? Yes, good answer. Excellent. You guys all are good doobies. And then you need to keep this on file in your offices up to 4 years. Okay? Very straightforward. Let's just, because we care a lot about security, and you're going to hear this theme throughout our 2 hours today, I'm going to be very boring and annoying and read this out loud. So 1, anybody again signing this is going to agree to They will not divulge the contents of the test to anybody through any medium whatsoever. They will not copy the tests. They will keep them secure until distributed. They will limit access to only test examinees. They will collect and account for all materials, so that's really important. We'll talk more about that. They will not review the test questions or items at all, anytime. They will always return the materials to you, the designated building coordinator. They will not go and develop any crazy scoring keys. They will administer the test in accordance with the DFA, and they are going to commit and say that they've been trained to administer these tests, and they understand the consequences of not following this agreement. So, the good news again is this is same as last year. So it's nothing new. We're not changing the rules on you, not adding anything scarier. So hopefully if you have experienced test administrators, this is relatively straightforward for them because it's the same. So again, this is that slide I was thinking about. Still, before the tests window, again, this is when you're going to call the call center if you do need more materials. And again, remembering that 10% overage is included in all shipments as standard, okay? Also, so your responsibilities is ensuring that you get those test materials to your test administrators, that you work with them in understanding how to have a safe and secure environment where your students will be testing, and work with the test administrators to know about accommodations and what accommodations are being provided. Also, let's make sure that you test in the recommended order that we specify in the DFA. A couple of very important things. One, consistency for makeups. So, if you have students requiring makeups, you want to apply that makeup schedule to each and every student so that they have the same equal process, if you would. And you want to try to mimic your makeup schedule to the regular testing schedule. So if you tested reading first, you want to then try to get the kids in the makeup window also starting with reading. Okay? That really just keeps things equal and consistent across the board. And those little kind of things end up mattering a lot. You cannot retest a section. So if you have an incident and had a compromised test booklet in the middle of a section, and that student cannot complete the section during the testing time, that student now needs to come back and finish during makeup. However, you cannot repeat the section that was compromised. Okay? That is a violation of security. That section has been exposed. That student has seen the questions. Oh my God. You guys have all heard me. There, it's coming, I hope. Come on, baby. Anyway, so that is an example of test security. Oh. There we go. That needs to be taken very seriously. So here's the deal. You can make us the bad guy. It can be sometimes a really awkward and difficult conversation, especially the parent is going to feel completely like, and that's okay. Put it on us. Say the testing vendor cannot risk the fact that your son, Johnny, saw these questions. They've told us. I went to training, and now I know, and it's very official. We cannot retest this section. We're going to start now with section 2. And that's a bummer, but that's the case. So it really affects the validity when we compromise test questions like that. And again, you can put it on that, being that it's an ETS testing validity issue. Not we're being mean, not we're trying to hurt Johnny, but it really affects the overall validity of the scores and the inferences that we make about these scores, so we just can't do it. Okay? Also, once you start a section, you need to finish the section. Do not schedule accordingly. Do not schedule split sections. You schedule based on the recommended testing times. We have those in your DFA. Page 18 in your DFA is all the recommended testing times. Use those times for your scheduling as you now plan and get this ready. So you do not split any sections when you get that testing schedule set up. Also, what we like to recommend and prefer is you complete an entire subject before starting another. So again, complete reading before you start math. Don't juggle, reading section 1, math section 1, science section 1. Reading section 2, no, we don't like that. Okay? Do it all one subject, complete subject, next subject. All 3 sections, complete, next subject. Okay? That's not a hard, fast rule requirement per se, but it does yield better results, and it's a better experience for the students. So we prefer that you schedule it that way. Any questions? Yes. Oh, wait. Oh, see, Jerry, I'm good. It's really close.
All right, given we have a 2-week window with spring breaks that most schools have, because whatever reason. Anyway, with those parameters on makeup, if I understood you right, if a student, let's say, missed day 1 reading section 1, you're wanting us then to, for makeup, that student then wouldn't go to reading section 2, they'd have to come back and start with reading makeup 1, or did I misunderstand that?
No.
So they would be in a makeup test group for the remainder of the test session.
Yes.
Is that a recommendation, or is that?
It's going to be what you need to make.
Expectation?
It's going to, here, always, you need to do what works best for you. I do not know your challenges and the limitations that you're faced with. So everything that I say and everything that WDE is going to say is always going to say with best judgment. But yes is the answer to the question. That student at that point, it's going to depend on how your schedule floats too. If they were able to be coming in through section 2 of reading without compromising anything else, and therefore only need to make up section 1, and that fits everything, then that's what you're going to do. So, any other questions? Because this ends up always kind of being an area of trickiness, if you would. I mean, this is, I think, for you guys as building coordinators, the most of what you have to really get your heads wrapped around is getting that schedule figured out, making all these, accommodations, not literally, accommodations for, the kids, your schedule, the teacher's schedule, spring break this year, which is miserable, we know. So, come on, get off. There we go. Okay. So you have our empathy, really. Moving on. Special forms. This is as it relates to students that need accommodations. So we provide 4 different types of special forms: large print, English audio, math audio, Spanish audio, and Braille. If you had students with said accommodations last year, they would then be still indicated as such in the state file coming over, and those materials should be part of your standard order. Okay? If, however, it's a new accommodation, then that needs to be first addressed in TOMS. If that did not get in TOMS before January 22nd, which I think actually you might not have even had the ability to do that this year, then you do need to place a supplemental order and get that to you to ensure that they get this special form. Okay? And I would say that's probably 80% of the orders we receive during the supplemental order window are special forms, because we know those accommodations change a lot. They fluctuate. So that there is no reading audio. Okay, so if someone is having the accommodation for audio, they still have to take the reading test as is. So as far as receiving your special forms, that's it. That's the process. That's what they need to know. And we're going to then come back when we're during testing, talking about those special forms. Any questions on those? Yes?
Is the English audio, is that if they have the accommodation to have things read to them?
Yes.
Rather than having somebody read to them, they would
Yep.
get this accommodation?
And I forgot to mic you. So the question was, for the sakes of the camera, the English audio, is that to handle for the accommodation to have the reading, it to be being verbally heard instead of them reading it? Yes. There is, though, an accommodation that specifies whether or not it could be just someone reading out loud or they actually get the audio CD. So, yes. Probably your special ed person would know based on the student what is needed, and should be consulted. And then we'll talk about what also needs to be done when during testing with these forms, because we got to make sure that you indicate the proper boxes and all that good stuff. You're very loud, Emily.
I was just gonna come grab that mic so you can continue and I can pass it around to people when they have questions. How's that?
There's one in the back.
I have a student who I have ordered audio for math, because she doesn't do science this year. The accommodation is having that read, it's on her IEP, is having math, whatever, read to her. But did I just hear you say we have to have a specific accommodation that says they can use a CD? I must
No.
have misunderstood.
So there's 26 different accommodations. And there is, it splits it out if you would. You could have someone reading it out loud, or you could have the audio CD. That's all. It's an or situation.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yep. Any other questions?
But you fill in those accommodations when you test. You can't.
You need to speak into the mic. Start over.
You fill in those accommodations when you're getting ready to test. You no longer can pre-bubble the accommodations like we used to.
Correct.
Okay.
And do the audios also come with the book, with the form?
Ooh,
Because I
good
know that
question.
we were counting.
Yeah.
Or is it just the CDs?
I'll get the answer before we leave. Can someone email Lisa for me? Does anyone know from past experience? When you order the CD, does it come with the test booklet, or is that just coming standalone CD? It comes with
Usually
the,
packaged with the rest of it.
got it.
It might have been in a separate box that came a day or two later.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so you don't need to order.
add that to your count.
Yep. Really good, thank you. Yeah, and I would say we probably I want to add that to the BCM for next year. Because I do think people worry and don't know. And if they knew that in advance, they can plan for it accordingly. Wow, that was like a great question.
So I asked students, I think they're going to need the English audio.
Yep,
And I did not pre-order.
yep,
So now I'm just going to call the supplemental
yep,
after the 8th.
yep.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. That was so easy. You didn't even ask me a question.
Just talking to myself.
That's okay. We all do it. All right, we'll move on. Again, talking more about special forms. So the other big thing that must be done, and those of you that have done this before, you know, they must transfer the student responses to either the student test booklet or the answer doc. Okay, for the large print and braille, we cannot scan those. They must be transferred over to a standard test booklet or answer doc. Otherwise, the student will have no score. And that, unfortunately, has actually happened for lack of knowledge on the building coordinator's part. So that's obviously for large print and braille. And again, so in the answer doc, this is what I was referring to. So at the bottom of the demographic, it's a little section 8, and this is the exact same look of the demographic page of the test booklet as well. This is where that bubble has to correspond to the special form that they took. Okay, you bubble in as part of their demographic page the corresponding bubble to the special form that they took. And that is actually really critical to ensure downstream that this carries with the student score, because that's the score key used needs to know that. So it's really important. Don't forget. Okay. Enough about special forms, moving on to labels. We love labels. Don't we love the labels? I love the labels. The labels were better. Labels were new 2 years ago for us with you guys. So much better. So the label is simply going to print whatever was in Tom's as of January 22nd. Someone's really bummed. And so therefore, inevitably, we know that that is probably not the most accurate time to give you that stamp of what was in there to what you now need. But that's just the reality, because that's when we had to cut it off to ensure that we can get it to the print vendor to get you the labels in time. So you're going to have, therefore, some people that won't have labels. It's okay. It happens all the time. And we'll talk about that. So also remember, and do not panic, when you receive your test materials, the labels will not be in the boxes. They come separately. They come from a different print vendor. So I think there was a lot of panic about that last year. So they come in a smaller, softer envelope, and should be targeted the same time that your box is there, but it's not going to be with the box. Okay? So don't panic if you get your box first, or don't panic if you get your labels first. 4 labels per student, as always. And again, with the pre-ID labels is where we'll also include for you the student roster and pre-printed school header sheets. Those pre-printed school header sheets are going to be based on what the labels have. Okay? So continuing on with labels, when you in fact now have a student that did not get a label, or the label that you have for the student is completely wrong. Okay, either one of those situations, we treat that from here on in as a walk-in. What do we do with walk-ins? Bubble. So it's okay if you have a new student in your school, or the information has now somehow changed, you're just going to simply bubble. Ideally, do not affix the label at all to either the test booklet or the answer doc. We prefer to know a walk-in's a walk-in, even if it's just, a digit off on their date of birth. At that point, they're a walk-in to us. Don't even put the label on. Don't think you're helping us by just crossing out the 1 digit of the date of birth. That actually is like the worst thing you can do for us. If in fact though, and this frequently happens, you kind of divide and conquer, and you have different resources doing different things, and they didn't get the memo about wanting to check the labels, and all the labels just went right on the answer docs or the test booklets. And now you, building coordinator, are checking and you're seeing that the information is wrong. Double gasp, right? It's okay. Black marker, 1 solid X, cross it out. Don't just cross out the 1 piece of information. That actually is more ambiguous for us and requires more manual intervention, and we have to then get 6 different people second guessing what you tried to think you were doing. Just 1 X, cross the whole thing out and fill out the entire demographic page in its entirety. Again, do not mix and match. Don't give me partial information on the label, partial information on the demographic. Unfortunately, that also is a worst case scenario for us and does not help, and it makes a lot of manual intervention, and we have to try to manually fix, guess, sometimes call. Many of you have received phone calls from me. So, answer docs. Your kids in grades 6 through 8 use an answer document, not recording their answers on the test booklet, as they do in grades 3 through 5. You need to make sure your test administrators know and understand there is only 1 answer doc for the student, so that answer doc travels with them for reading, for math, and for science.
So I just have a question about if we have a student that moves out of our district in the past, I guess we've just gone ahead and destroyed those those labels. Is that okay still this year just to destroy? Okay.
We're going to handle on what to do after testing. Okay. Again, for the test booklets, those are for the kids grades 3 through 5. Also, again, you need to make sure that those materials are secure at all times. We're going to talk a lot about that. And plan ahead on how you're going to keep those materials secure. So you need to incorporate in your schedule now how you're going to roll out the information related to keeping the materials secure, where they'll be, who will have access to them. And if you hopefully implement a test materials tracking on this handy dandy little form we've now given you in the back of your BCM, you want to again get that rolled into the planning window now and get the test administrators trained on using it, which is probably what you're also doing now, getting ready for that training. Okay? So all of that is still before testing. Getting the label onto the answer doc. So as the text says, place label here, the text of your label follows that same direction so that you're reading the label from left to right. Okay? Pretty straightforward. Believe it or not, we thought it was straightforward enough on the test booklets as well. Had not included the text place ID label here as we do on the answer doc. And so I get a lot of issues and concerns about this. First of all, if you place it wrong, it's okay. But try not to place it wrong. And again, the intuitive judgment is to still follow that you're going to read from left to right, so the text is facing in to the rest of the bubbles. Please put it on accordingly. God forbid if someone put it on wrong, it's okay. We have really good scanning equipment. It actually rejects and has to get manually recorded, but it's okay. Also, as part of before your testing, you also need to make sure that your exemption requests are submitted. They are due March 18th. On page 24 in your BCM is again specific to the exemption. As you can see on the form, there's only 3 categories of exemptions that the state will allow: expelled, ELL, or student placed out of state. Not moved, placed. So if they've been placed into some sort of a residential facility out of the state, that would be an example. Okay, those are the only 3 types of exemptions allowed. What you do not see on this list is medical. Right? No medical reason now allowed for an exemption request. Also, no opt-out. The only way that that can be submitted is through the transcript center. No exceptions. None whatsoever. That is it for the before testing. Any questions?
One of my administrators told me that only licensed teachers can be test administrators. Is that true or not?
Certified trained staff member.
So it could be like a counselor that's certified as well as trained.
Correct.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
Correct.
Is that an exception in rural areas?
Is that an exception in rural areas? No.
No. Okay.
No exception.
Okay. What about a certified substitute?
As long as that certified substitute has attended your school's training, your test administrator training, and signed the security agreement form.
Okay.
So with special ed accommodations, if a certified teacher is in the room, but like a para is sitting with the student, that's okay?
Paraprofessional support can be a number of things. I'm going to answer that and say they have to go through the training, because at that point your test materials have been exposed to that person. So I want them to go through test administrator training.
And sign the agreement.
And sign the agreement.
They may be present in the room, but they cannot administer any of the items.
Right. Which is what they're certifying when they sign that form.
You would reach out to us and we would see what we could do. But technically, again, it's that certified trained staff.
I just thought I would ask because I'm sure that it will come back around.
Yes, and I'm glad you did for that reason, because that does need to be clarified.
Just for a little more clarity. So then if we have a certified staff trained administrator, they're in the room, but we have paraprofessionals that are readers, Are we okay with that?
As long as they go through test administrator training and sign the form. As long as they go, the same question that you had. They go through the test administrator training and sign the form.